This conference is a bit different, isn't it? So, quick show of hands, who here has designed for connected TV before? Can't actually see. Oh, there's a few hands, brilliant. So in case you didn't know, connected TV, basically, when I talk about connected TV, I'm talking about smart TVs, Fire TV sticks, games consoles, set-top boxes, and streaming devices. So as you can imagine, it's a super fragmented space. Not only do devices come in different shapes and sizes, but they all come with their own different rules and specifications. So when I design in a space, I like to think about some principles and fundamentals that are kind of true across the board. And I'm going to share with you 3 little demos that will hopefully communicate across some of those principles to you guys. So I guess the 3 key things I want you to take away at the end of this is, if you want to design UX for connected TV, you should, 1, make sure it works, 2, make it familiar, and 3, get out of the way. So onto the first principle, making sure it works. So the good thing about TVs, designing for TVs, is you have a fixed screen size. That's an aspect ratio of 16:9. So you have a nice, consistent canvas to work with. Now, TV manufacturers will reserve some of the space around this screen, and there's a concept called overscan. Now, overscan is a very historic thing. A lot of modern TVs don't have this issue, but it's very important that we design inclusive experiences, because as you know, TVs aren't upgraded as often as mobile phones are, unless that's your thing, but most people won't. So onto my sort of starting point when I'm designing for these big screen devices. So I have a canvas. It's 1920 by 1080. And something that I add to every canvas before I start designing is this component, which is a safe zone component. Now, different manufacturers will again have different guidelines. So Fire TV will tell you to keep 5% of the edges free. tvOS will tell you to keep 60 pixels at the top, 90 pixels to the side. So what I've done is I've combined these into a single component, and essentially the red frame around the edge is like your no-go zone. And so we have to ensure that all our key elements are visible, and they're not going to get cut off the screen or get clipped at all. So here's an example I made earlier, which was supposed to have the safe zones turned off. Live demos, love them. So here's an example I made earlier. So based on what I've just told you, I'm sure you can see a bunch of stuff that might be wrong with this design. And so essentially, this design is just not going to work on connected TVs. So when we do turn our safe zone on, you can see that the key navigation is completely cut off, your logo is cut off, your program synopsis and information is being cut off. A lot of bad things are happening, right? You couldn't use this app if you're on one of these devices where overscan is an issue. So I'm just going to show you very quickly how to fix this. So if my hand stops shaking, it might be easier. So the first thing that you want to do, obviously, you want to make sure all of your components are in the visible space. So we're going to just shift it across very quickly. So just doing that alone has made it a lot more usable. You're not going to cut off any vital kind of UI components here. Now, if you really want to look at the details further, you'll notice that the carousel at the bottom is only going to show 5 items in view. Now, the intention behind the design here is it's a carousel with a number of items, and we want to provide that affordance to the user, and we want to make sure they know that if they start scrolling, there's going to be more than 5 items. So as you can see here, that's being cut off. So what we might want to start doing is maybe changing the padding a little bit. And so we're providing a little bit of a peak on the side, so you can see that there's an indication that there's more than 5 items. So now this is a design that will work on a connected TV. So onto the second principle I wanted to talk to you guys about, and this is around making it familiar. So unlike touchscreen devices, the way that you interact with a TV is you use a remote control. Now, there's so many different remote controls, right? And they all have different amounts of like cognitive load onto them. But the things that they do have in common is they have this D-pad or directional pad. Now, the D-pad allows you to navigate a TV UI by going up, down, left, or right, and you can step through the UI one step at a time. Now, what that means is we have to ensure navigation is intuitive, natural, and familiar to the user. We want to make sure that it's not distracting away from the content and the key reasons why users want to get to where they want to get to. So I'm going to show you another example of a design here. Here's another one that I made earlier. So we can see here, if you imagine this is a category page, so you're in the mood for comedy, so you've kind of gone to a comedy section. Now, there's 2 key problems with this page. One is it's not very clear where I am right now at a glance. And the second thing is it's not particularly clear where I can go next. So with the first problem, let's try and solve this now. So if I duplicate my design, now the intention here is that I'm actually focused in the top left corner. So what we can do to quickly fix this issue is, increase the size of our border. Let's change the color of the border. And we can also scale it up, so we can really make it much bigger and draw your attention. Now, there's a lot more you can do again, but straight away, just by doing these things, you can, at a glance, look at the design and see where you are on the screen right now. If you think of our focus state as that point on the map when you're in a foreign city and you're getting to a map, and the first thing you want to look for is the big arrow that says you are here. So hopefully we've made that a little bit easier. Now, if I duplicate this design again, there's a slight issue with navigation here. And now there's 2 ways you can navigate on TVs. You can either have a fixed focus state, where all your items are being dragged to the point where you are on the screen, or you can have a traveling focus state, which is where the focus state jumps to the next item on the screen. So with this design here, you can imagine that the intention is that this could be a traveling focus state. Now imagine if I go to the right, I'm going to go to the next item. Now what happens if I want to go down? I've kind of got 2 different options. It's not very clear. Now, let's have a go at fixing the navigation problem with this design. So this kind of comes back to making it familiar. Now, there's a reason why a lot of streaming apps do look the same. There's a lot to be said for things looking familiar, so you don't have to think about what you're doing. You can very easily navigate the UI, and it doesn't feel like cognitive load. So a few things that I've added previously in this component just for this demo is I've got a couple of titles that I've just turned on. And let's improve it further by adding some more spacing. So just by doing this, you're chunking up the information. Already, it feels like it's a much easier page to navigate. You can kind of make assumptions as to what the behavior might be. Your path to your next actionable state potentially is much clearer than it was previously. Okay, so onto the final. Sorry, I'm doing a quick time check. Okay. Onto the final principle that I wanted to get through. So the final one is get out of the way. Now, TV viewing is all about the lean back experience. It's also often referred to as the 10-foot experience. Unlike portable devices, you're viewing from a distance. You're likely to be on the sofa, chilling at home, perhaps with some snacks, a glass of wine. It can't just be me that watches TV that way. So it's a lean back experience. What you want to do is you want to get to the content you love as quickly as possible. And for us, it's about getting out of the way so that you can do that with the least amount of effort possible. Actually, before I show an example here, if I can mention Netflix here as an example. So Netflix have this feature of auto-playing content. And it's a very Marmite feature. So they will autoplay trailers if you kind of hover around a certain item while you're browsing, it will start to autoplay. Now, we know from our research that a lot of people really don't like this feature, and so they will often turn it off. But we also do know that there's something in getting that content to you and reducing the amount of clicks to get to that content. So there's something interesting in this, and what we would like to do is create a prototype and get some valuable user input on this. If we were to kind of create this feature on our platform, what would users think? So I'm just going to quickly show you. Now here's a design I made earlier. Probably should have checked if I'm allowed to share this. Can we all sign NDAs? So we've got a homepage, a fictional homepage, with the menu open. And what we want to do is create a prototype where we show a trailer playing in that hero, and we want to get user input to see what they actually think. Is it annoying, or is it actually quite good? So I'm going to create a quick prototype. Right, so the way that we prototype in Figma is actually really good for prototyping really quickly. So we use the keypad up, down, left, right to kind of mirror what users would do with a remote control. So if I just create a few steps here. So we've got the second step here where I want the menu to slide over to the left. So I'm just going to move it off to the side. Let's say I want that hero image to take over the whole page. And let's say that I just want to move all my content across. Okay, and little focus state there. And that next step here for us will be to put an actual trailer in the background. So I have put a video in here previously, so I'm just going to turn that on. And under prototype, I'm going to make sure that that's going to autoplay. Okay, cool. Oh. So if I create my links to these screens now, if I go into prototype mode and create a link. Now the first link, I want to trigger when I press right on my remote control. So the trigger here is key or gamepad, and then right. And I always like to make use of Smart Animate. I think it's a really brilliant shortcut. It kind of does a lot of thinking for you, and it will make things feel very smooth. Hopefully. Now, on the next step following this, I would like to play the trailer automatically. So in this case, my trigger is after delay. Now, let's say that after 3 seconds, we want the trailer to play. And then we can take this one step further. If we're talking about a principle of getting out of the way, you can probably guess the next thing that I want to do here is remove the UI from the screen. So if I duplicate that screen again and move this completely out of the way, then that will be our final step in the prototype. Don't judge me, I'm just doing it on the fly. Sure, there was a smart shortcut to do that. Okay, so the final one is going to be again after delay. So after 3 seconds, again, we want the UI to move out of the way. So let's play this. Now, I've done this super quick. I hope it plays and works. And Wi-Fi, please work. Praying to the Wi-Fi gods. All right, so it's loading up. OK, so if I hit right, so I've gone into the home page. Brilliant. The trailer starts playing. And the UI has slid out of the way. So that's a really quick prototype that we can now take to users, put it in front of them, and kind of ask them what are their thoughts. Is it annoying, or is it actually quite engaging? And that is the end of my talk.